Chapter 16. To slay Nylarthrotep. Enkidu's might. Haida's resolve. Enkidu paces the apothecary shop, his patience run dry. Waiting is not one of the impulsive warrior's virtues, and he is eager to rush in head first against the priests of Nylarthrotep and the city guard of Dwarka. "Sit," Haida says, watching the man stalk the room like a caged animal. "You are making me nervous." "I am tired of this cowardly hiding. If I am to die in this city, I would rather it be while I am facing that damned worm Nylarthrotep. You will not make it to the serpent if you are captured and killed by the city guards." "That," Enkidu growls, opening the door, "is a chance that I must take." "Your people will thank you in hell for your impatience." "Damn your tongue," Enkidu shouts. "Do you think that I care not about my people? The whole reason I am in this city is for them." "Getting yourself killed will do them no good. Your people need you to return to them with supplies and food. Without you, they will be unable to rebuild." Enkidu sighs loudly, defeated. "I cannot remain here doing nothing. Do you truly believe that the loan for Nylarthrotep still exists? Surely, the city guards have met with the priesthood by now and identified me." Haida nods. "That is likely. Nothing happens in Dwarka without the head priest Dakon's blessing. He has more authority than the elders and officiates combined." "Could he be made to bargain against the city guard's wishes?" "I do not understand." Haida gives him a puzzled look, frowning. "What could you offer Dakon to sway his hand against you?" Enkidu draws Tiavan, grinning. "I will offer to spare his life, after he has witnessed me claim the head of his god." "There is no hope for you," Haida says, shaking her head as if Enkidu were a headstrong child. "You will not be content unless you are staring death in the eyes." "I will be the only death in this city, as I come for those of the serpent and reap them." "There is a tunnel that leads into the temple from outside the city, through which the guards bring in slaves and foreigners, for the serpent to devour in secret. The majority of the people do not realize the insatiable appetite of their god. The sacrifices made to the serpent are for show. If that beast were to be sustained by the sacrifices of the faithful, none would remain in only a few short years. I must sneak into that tunnel if I am to gain an audience with the worm and its handler. You will be entering the serpent's feeding grounds." It is obvious that Haida is concerned for Enkidu's safety. The thought of him being devoured by Nylarthrotep is too much for her to consider. "Not even you can be successful in those conditions." "Do not worry about me." Enkidu smiles, touched by her concern, but steadfast in his course. "I shall not die before that worm. Can your allies get me into that tunnel or not?" Haida nods. "It should be simple enough. We have blocked the entrance with stones before in attempts to delay the creature's feeding. Please, lead me to this tunnel, and I shall trouble you no more." "You are not troublesome," Haida whispers, hurt that Enkidu would think such. "I do not wish for any harm to befall you." "When the serpent has drawn its last breath, we shall all rejoice," Enkidu promises, taking her hand into his own. "Please, help me bring this all about." Haida's face turns red and she looks away from him in embarrassment. "You are a fool." Carefully, the two of them exit the shop and make their way through the alleys and avoid crowds. The guard presence is now much greater in the city. It is only a matter of time before one of them spots the fugitives. Enkidu steps over the legs of a man lying face down on the street, fully nude. An empty wineskin lies beside his head, and a young woman with raven hair is slumped with her back against the nearest wall. Equally nude, the woman has no shame in baring her most private areas for all the world to witness. Haida flinches upon seeing the woman, filled with images of her own shame in the city. "Come, we must not delay," Haida whispers, pushing Enkidu forward. "The eastern port will be the least guarded. There's no outlet to the sea, and that port is used only for storage and travel upriver. We can cross the docks and wade across the water to the shore and be outside the city." "Lead the way," Enkidu says. "I will not allow any harm to befall you." The man on the ground stirs, hearing a familiar voice. "Enkidu?" Tarvin groans, posting his hands on the street and lifting himself up. "Is that you?" Enkidu steps back, startled. "Tarvin?" He's shocked and disgusted by the state of his companion. "What has happened to you?" Tarvin sits up, not bothering to cover himself. His body is covered with dark, mouth-sized bruises. He appears dehydrated and fatigued. "Only the greatest joys man may know, brother," Tarvin smiles. "I cannot describe the experiences this city has taught me." Enkidu lowers his eyes in sadness. "I'm sorry that I failed you. I could not shield you from the snares of Dwarka. Now you are lost." "Lost?" Tarvin's voice raises, and he begins to agitate. Enkidu can smell the waves of alcohol on his breath. "I am found for the first time in my life. People like you and my father preached against Dwarka and how evil it was, but you never took the opportunity to explore the deeper philosophies and meanings behind the city's practices. I am more enlightened and closer to a spiritual oneness in Dwarka than I ever was back home. The joining of flesh is not just for pleasure. It is symbolic and beautiful. Those are all distractions and games meant to strengthen the serpent. Do not fall under that foul creature's spell. The serpent brings joy and drink. He spreads love and pleasure. What has your God done for us, Enkidu?" He pauses, his eyes focusing enough for him to really see his companion clearly. "Your hair and skin have darkened. Or have I gone mad?" "The drink has clouded your vision," Enkidu says softly. "Goodbye, Tarvin." Tarvin manages to stand and begins to sway as he fights to maintain his balance. "You are a stubborn man who refuses to allow himself joy." He grasps Enkidu's arm. "I hope that one day you become free of the burdens you carry." Enkidu says no more, leaving with Haida. Tarvin smiles, just now noticing Enkidu's female companion. "It seems the Dwarka may bring you happiness yet, Enkidu." Tarvin smiles. Haida looks back as they continue to navigate the alleys in the dwindling torchlight. "You came here with that young man?" she asks. Enkidu nods. "I should never have allowed him to accompany me. If he had stayed behind, he would never have fallen to Dwarka's evil." "It is not up to each man to determine his own fate. You cannot make the decisions for others. They must choose on their own, even if they choose poorly." "A girl enslaved and forced to do unspeakable evils dares talk to me about choice?" Enkidu groans. "How far is this port?" Haida laughs, quickening her pace. "Not far. We need only cross those buildings ahead." The heavy footfall of multiple city guards draws Enkidu's attention, and he pulls Haida into an alley. "What are you doing? Our destination is just up ahead." "There's a patrol nearing that area. We cannot be caught in the open, or we will not make the port before more authorities are alerted." "We must get past these buildings to reach the port. We can possibly backtrack a bit and go the long way around." Enkidu pauses, listening to the air. Silently, the man curses to himself. "The guards are too close and have circled around. They already know we're here." How is that possible? We'd have known if we'd been seen. Enkidu frowns. Perhaps they have a magician in their employ, scrying for us. I do not know. He draws Tiavon. What I do know is that we will have to fight our way through these men if we want to reach that port. They run back down the alley to find that it ends with a stone wall, rising up far too high for either of them to leap. The walls are too smooth to give footholds, so climbing is also out of the question. We'll have to use this alley as a choke point, where they can only attack us from one direction. The footfalls of the guards become louder, and Haida's breath catches. You cannot be serious. Even you cannot take on that many guards. It sounds as though an entire unit has been dispatched to find and kill us. Unless you know magic yourself to pass through solid walls, I see no other alternative before us. Haida slowly shakes her head. I know only of herbal medicines and effects. No spellcrafting. The guards become dangerously close. Stay back against the wall and do not engage. I cannot worry about your safety if I am to battle at my fullest. Why? Haida asks. Why are you even doing this? You do not owe me or the people of this city anything. You could leave now, and Dwarka would be of trouble to you no more. Enkidu grins as the first guardsman comes into view. Because it is the right thing to do. If men do not seek to do what is right, we have no cause to ever seek paradise in the next life. Not giving the guardsman time to speak, Enkidu rushes with a piercing stab through the first man's face. Pivoting, the warrior slashes free of the guard's skull, and Tiavon bites several inches down to the right shoulder of the second assailant. Blood splatters outward, and the guard is instantly driven to a knee. Pivoting, Enkidu decapitates the second man as easily as slicing through water. A small measure of fear causes a third guard to hesitate a fraction of a second. For his lack of quick action, he receives a sword to the belly that is ripped diagonally across his body and into the neck of a fourth guard. The fourth man stumbles, reaching for his bleeding throat, but Enkidu adds more power to the cut and completes the severing of his head. Rushing over the bodies of their fallen comrades, more guards enter the alley. A fifth guard attempts to grab Enkidu, but loses his right hand for the effort. Reeling back in pain, the guard causes the sixth man to trip and impale yet another of their fellows to the back with his sword. The guard pushes his dying ally aside and stands, covered in blood, just as reinforcements arrive in the form of 5 more guards. Enkidu flings the blood from his sword and stands his ground, ready for any approach. 3 of the guards try to move at once, becoming crowded in the narrow alley. With lightning-fast slashes, Enkidu capitalizes on the low maneuverability of the alley and fells each man with deadly precision. Bodies lie mangled upon the stone and dirt streets, some in many pieces. Blood is everywhere. Bastard outsider! One of the remaining guards curses, staring at his foiled comrades. You will be made to pay with your life for all of these crimes. You attacked me, Enkidu says, holding his sword outwards in defiance and intimidation. I came to this city for help, not to kill your friends. You had no reason to come after me. The woman with you is a murderer and must be put to death. Enkidu laughs. Do not set lies before me. They will not spare your life from my blade. We both know that your officials put a bounty upon my head the second they learned I was in Dwarka. You are an enemy of Nylarthrotep, and as such, an enemy of this city, another guard interrupts. Finally, a man with balls who speaks the truth among you. Enkidu looks at the guard directly. I shall kill you the swiftest for your honesty. Enough of this, the first guard to speak growls. I do not care what we were ordered. Bring the priests back this blasphemer's head. They can squeeze out a few drops of blood from the remains, if that is so important to them. 2 guards spring forward, trying to maneuver around Enkidu to flank him. The more skilled warrior drops low and spins in a circle, slicing both of the men at the ankles. As he rises, a 3rd guard leaps forward with a vertical slash. Enkidu blocks the attack with Tiavan and holds all of the man's strength at bay. As the 2 strain against each other, the 1st guard that spoke rushes in and attempts to slip around his comrade with a knife to Enkidu's gut. With a furious battle cry, Enkidu pushes both men to their backs and advances. Before either can defend, the throats of the guards are slashed open. 2 of the remaining guards draw bows and try to snipe their opponent from a distance, while the 2nd guard to speak runs down the center, screaming savagely. Enkidu runs, dodging and slashing through the hail of arrows, taking 1 to each thigh before reaching the advancing guard. The Dwarken man is felled with a single blow before he can even process what is happening. Both of the archers are unable to switch to their close combat weapons before Enkidu is upon them. Soon, all of the guards pursuing them, for the time being, are dead. Now is our chance to move, Enkidu says, reaching out for Haida to take his hand. We must go before another patrol is put to our trail by whomever is tracking our location. They navigate the area, finding it the first in the city free of drunken orgies and celebrations. Not a soul is in sight, and they are able to reach the docks with ease. A handful of Dwarken shipworkers unload a wooden longboat from Ubaid across the Arius Sea. We must get past them without allowing them to alert any guards, Haida whispers, hiding behind a large barrel. Enkidu nods, positioning himself behind the nearest dock worker, and strikes him down with a single strong blow to the back of the skull. As the man crumples, Enkidu catches him by the arms and drags him out of sight. All this happens without a sound, and he repeats this tactic to clear out each of the workers. Your power is frightening, Haida says, in awe of Enkidu's skill as a warrior. If he so wished, he could kill as easily as he incapacitates. She is comforted that Enkidu does not seem to enjoy killing, and avoids it unless absolutely necessary. You need only fear me if all of your aid has been a deception. I will not tolerate betrayal into the jaws of the serpent. Haida nods. I have no affection for the serpent. Would not hand you over to it. They wade into the dark waters of the river Ashtoma. The small river acts as a natural barrier to the north of the city, providing it some protection from attack, as well as a method of launching ships northward to reach the much larger Shela River. As the rainwater from the surrounding areas flows into the river, it carries sediment, minerals, and other debris with it, which can cause the water to become more turbid and brown in color. The riverbanks may also become saturated and muddy, and vegetation is more lush and green than in other areas around Dwarka. During heavy rainfalls, the water level of the river can rise rapidly, causing flooding in some areas. The water quickly dips over Haida's chin, and she struggles on the tops of her toes to stay above the surface. Enkidu hoists the woman onto his shoulders and takes a deep breath as he walks, sinking below the surface several times before they reach the shore, walking alongside the river as it wraps around the stone walls of Dwarka. After several hundred paces, the ground begins to rise again, and they climb ashore, resting beside the outer city wall. Thank you, Haida says, watching Enkidu's chest rise and fall as he catches his breath. Think of it not, Enkidu replies, emptying the water from Tiavan's scabbard. You being swept off in the water to be devoured by crocodiles would do me no good. Haida laughs. She finds it interesting that Enkidu constantly keeps his guard up, emotionally deflecting her small talk. She can see that he is focused on killing Nylarthrotep, and will not allow anything to distract him. The entrance to the feeding tunnel is close by. Enkidu wonders if the great serpent freely moves between the city and the river through this tunnel. Haida stops, kneeling beside a large pile of stones, rounded smooth by continuous water flow. "It is here," she says, pointing to an iron grating atop a deep black hole. "This is odd." She hesitates before opening the tunnel. "They always scatter the stones so that we must collect them again from the river. Yet they remain here in a heap." Enkidu's instincts all caution him, and he grabs Haida by the arm, flinging her back into the river. From atop the walls of Dwarka, archers loose arrows, while others stand on special wooden hoardings and pour cauldrons of boiling liquids over the side in an attempt to scald their enemies. This method is crude but effective. Without much room to maneuver, only a warrior as agile as Enkidu would be able to evade. Anyone else would likely be scalded enough to be killed from the severe burns, or lose their grip on the wall and fall to their death. Enkidu leaps backward, avoiding the burning liquids, but shouts in pain as an arrow tears through his right thigh. Another arrow pierces the warrior's breast and sends him crashing back into the water. Haida surfaces with a gasp, arrows penetrating the darkness all around her. She watches with horror as Enkidu takes an arrow to the chest and falls helplessly into the river, disappearing. Taking a deep breath, she furiously kicks her feet to reach her companion and prevent him from being lost to drowning. She fights to pull Enkidu through the water, his dead weight acting like an anchor that continuously tries to sink them both. Finally reaching the docks, Haida throws herself onto the land and desperately drags Enkidu by one arm until he is only half submerged. She shivers from terror and the cold. The arrow in Enkidu's chest has snapped in half, and he does not move. "Please do not be dead," Haida cries, checking for Enkidu's heartbeat. The sound is faint and growing weaker each moment. "You!" a guard shouts. "Get away from that fugitive!" Half a dozen city guards jog down the docks, having anticipated the current escape route back into the city. "Peruse's information was right on the head," one of the guards says. "It pays to have someone like him in charge of tracking." Another guard nods. "Without him, we would be running around all night without a clue where to look." "You would not think to look at the docks for criminals trying to flee the city when the main gates are closed?" another guard asks, annoyed. "Without a tracker, that should have been the first location checked. I swear, some of you are too reliant on tricks." Haida can tell this man is different from the others. He stands with much more confidence, and has an air of experience about him. There's also a discernible bloodlust emanating from the guardsman that is lacking in the others. Haida fumbles at Enkidu's side, drawing forth his Yazatan blade. Several of the guards laugh. "Girl, do you want to die along with this foreigner? You are not a warrior. Go back to the whoring you are good at." "Come at me, and discover how much of a warrior I am," Haida challenges, holding the blade outwards to the guards. Rushing her, two of the guards flank Haida while a third comes up straight ahead. As she attempts to block the advance of her front attacker, the guard to her left strikes with an uppercut to her exposed ribs. Haida screams out, stumbling to the side. The guard to her right strikes her across the face with a backhand that drops her to the ground. Laughing, the guards take turns kicking the young woman. Haida tries to cover herself, balled into a fetal position as she is repeatedly beaten. The other guards approach Enkidu and stand over him to finish what the archers began. "Ease off. Dakin wants him alive," one of the guards cautions as another draws his sword. "It cannot be helped," the other guard shrugs. "He was dead when we came upon him." The tip of a spear emerges from the guard's chest, splattering blood onto the face of his comrade. As the guard's eyes widen with terrifying realization, his head is cleaved with one mighty swing. 3 men tackle another guard, stabbing him hundreds of times. Haida's body is unresponsive, unable to do anything against the pain. She feels her body being hoisted up, and briefly she sees the same done to Enkidu. "Check your surroundings!" the experienced guardsman screams as more of his comrades are felled by the ambush. He turns, cutting down an attacking man with a single slash. "They're sneaking the fugitives across the river. Get to that shore and follow them. Haida awakens in a bed and looks around in panic. She is nude except for a sheet. Her soiled clothing lies nearby a small fire, drying. "Where am I?" she asks, sitting up and pulling the sheet close to her breasts. "What happened?" "The guards ambushed you," a rough man with a scarred face and a thick beard explains. His arms and chest are large and seemingly cut from stone. "You were both beaten very badly. If we had not found you, they surely would have killed you." "Zidham?" Haida whispers, recognizing the man as one of her fellow conspirators against the priesthood. "How did you know how to find me?" He waves off her remark. "We did not. I only found it strange that the city guards were mobilizing on tonight of all nights. We were merely lucky to happen upon you when we did." She does not see Enkidu around. "The man. What happened to him?" "Where did you meet that stranger?" Zidham asks. "He was not among your targets." A look of anger and regret covers his face. "What has he done to draw so much ire from the city guard that they would send their finest after him? The guard in charge of that arrest was an elite soldier and mercenary. We lost 9 of our people trying to get away." "His name is Enkidu, and he's a brave warrior from Kataltakuk. He abhors the serpent and the Diamanaga celebrations. It is his vow to stop the serpent and the priests once and for all." "He is in a bad place," Zidham says frankly. The arrow to his chest penetrated deeply. Most men would have died already, yet he stubbornly clings to this world. Haida smiles, amidst her tears. "Yes, that does sound like him." "What happened to your targets? Were you successful in removing them?" Zidham asks, not interested in her feelings for Enkidu. "Tabor and Rabith were eliminated as planned. Kubo Eride proved to be more troublesome, but he too is no longer a problem for us." Zidham looks on her with disgust. He finds it abhorrent that Haida is able to engage in sexual acts with men, just to get the opportunity to kill them. If she were not useful as an assassin, he personally would purify the young woman and burn her remains. "I cannot stand that woman. How can she defile her body like that? Even though she is useful to our cause, what she does is disgusting and immoral. I do not understand how she can live with herself, knowing that she is nothing but a whore. She is a stain on society, spreading disease and corrupting men's minds. I do not even want to be near her, or have her in this home and risk her tainting the righteousness of the others gathered here for our shared struggle. Women like her are a reason why good men fall, why families break apart. She is a disgrace, and I cannot wait for the day when she is no longer needed, and she gets what she deserves." Zidham thinks with scorn. "Why were you at the docks? Did the guards see you kill any of the targets?" "They found the bodies, and I had to flee," Haida says. "I cannot linger in the city with so many guards already looking for me." "You were reckless," Zidham interrupts. "We should not have trusted such an important task to someone who knows only how to bring men physical release." "I have not seen you lift a finger against the serpent," Haida shouts in anger. She winces in pain as the shouting strains her bruised ribs. "I have been out there fighting darkness from the same shadows in which it dwells. Do not look down upon me. The priesthood will be under heavier guard now. We will not be able to get to them. We can still utilize the feeding tunnel that the priests use to bring sacrificial victims in from outside the city," Haida says. "Is that not where you and your consort were overtaken?" Haida balls her fists, holding back another angry outburst. "The tunnel would still provide us a route of lesser resistance than the front entrance of the temple." Enkidu staggers into the room. A dark-haired woman of about 40 years hurries in behind him. "He would not stay put and rest," Lisbon apologizes. Wrapped in bandages made of medicated leaves and reeds, Enkidu's wounds have been cleaned and sewn closed. Now is the best time for us to strike against the serpent and its priests, Enkidu declares. Who are you to have a say in these matters? Zidam asks angrily. I am Enkidu, son of Som, grandson of Jotham of the clan Hyalura. He is a warrior priest from the west, Haida explains, from a village called Kataltakuk. I know of the village, Zidam says. Small and poor, mostly fruit farmers and mud collectors. What harvest god has its own warrior priests? The only true god, Enkidu replies, glaring at the man. He is the creator of all, and the friend of everything that is good. Zealousy in one god is how Dwarka got in this horrible situation. Dwarka chose to worship not a god, but rather a worm. Nylarthrotep does not protect its worshippers, or have any power to grant blessings. The Lord and Creator provides for all of his children. Zidam waves a hand, rolling his eyes. I did not rescue you to be preached to. We are both enemies of the serpent. This much cannot be debated. Enkidu nods. If you are truly a warrior, it is your sword that I need now, not your faith. My sword is only sharp because of my faith. Should my convictions waver or the fire I have for God fade, my blade would fail each time. Enkidu replies. Whatever it is that motivates you, hold on to it. Zidam finally relents. So long as you swear to use that sword against the evil god of Dwarka. I make no oath or pledge to you. Before the Lord I vow to end the serpent, and the depravity it has infected all of Dwarka with. Haida moves to Enkidu's side to speak with him as Zidam leaves the room. You're not much of a people person, are you? Enkidu shrugs, but winces in pain as the action strains his injuries. Haida stares at him with disapproval. It is nothing, he replies. I have suffered far greater injuries before going into combat. The priests may not be warriors, but the entire city guard will be protecting them. We cannot afford for you to be anything less than your best. Enkidu holds a hand up in dismissal. Enough, woman. If I desired your nagging, I would make you my bride. Haida makes a sound similar to one that would occur if someone were choking on a drink of water. Enkidu laughs at her reaction. The priests of Nylarthrotep nor the guardsmen of Dwarka shall prevent me from ending the serpent and its evil. Slipping on his tunic with great difficulty, and multiple groans of discomfort, Enkidu prepares to return to the temple and make good on his vow. You must rest, Lisbon says. Your body is weak, and your stamina is not recovered. Must I endure the scolding of women eternally? Enkidu grabs his sword and exits the building in a hurry. Haida quickly follows him outside. You are safe here with your people. Why do you follow me like some stray dog? Haida tries to ignore his insult, remembering how much pain he must be in. I gave my word to you that I would do everything I could to assist you against the serpent. She flashes a dagger at her hip. The blade is slightly curved and about as long as her forearm. Sitting in meetings and strategizing is not what I would consider as useful. Enkidu nods. I agree. Hang back and finish off any that I fell but are not able to kill. He touches his fingers to a small gap on his throat, where the breastbones meet the neck. Aim here, with all of your body weight. Plunge your knife in, withdraw, and hurry to the next before he can recover. Haida wonders how many men she will have to kill before the night is over. They reach the temple steps, but their path is blocked by a great orgy of intertwining bodies. Damn, Enkidu curses. We will have to find another way. I cannot hack a path through these citizens. They're engaged in evil. They're no threat to us. It would be murder for me to attack them in such a fashion. Just as Zidam said, we cannot return to the underground passage. You recall how poorly that went. We may be left with no other choice, Enkidu says, staring at their fleshy obstacle. The heavy footfall of guards from behind draws their attention away from the temple. 24 armed Dwarka soldiers encircle them, cutting off their escape. The strategy has not changed, Enkidu whispers. Stay within the range of my sword and trust in me. I shall keep you safe. Haida nods, clinging to his arm. Fear is apparent in her eyes, and she knows in her heart that Enkidu means what he says. Enkidu of the clan Hyalura, one of the guards shouts. You have brought violence upon our most sacred of celebrations. Diamanaga shall not be tainted by your interference. He draws his sword and grins. Your blood shall appease our god and bring blessings upon our whole city. Drawing Tiavan, Enkidu separates himself from Haida and prepares for battle. Fighting me as a man, you will not prevail. You would be more successful in falling back and loosing arrows upon me again. Enkidu grins with arrogant confidence. That is the only way someone as weak as yourself could ever wound me. The guard laughs. I am not afraid of you, Enkidu Hyalura. The stories of your swordsmanship are greatly exaggerated. There is but one way to find out, Enkidu replies, digging his feet into the ground and readying himself. The guard lunges, rushing in with a head-level slash. He means to end the battle with a single blow, but Enkidu's speed is uncanny, and he is able to bring up his sword to block. Sparks scatter in all directions from the clashing of their blades. Enkidu delivers a knee to the gut of the man and pivots, smashing the outside of his left arm and elbow across his nose. The guard crumbles, knocked unconscious. Haida dives forward, plunging her blade down through his throat, exactly where Enkidu instructed. Blood bubbles up from the wound, and the guard convulses as the girl withdraws her blade. Kill them! Another guard screams, running forward. Enkidu slaps the next guard's sword aside and chops his neck with a bladed palm. Another guard rushes his left, and he drops low, sweeping his legs and thrusting his sword through the man's skull as he falls. 2 guards manage to get within Enkidu's swinging range and try to hold his arms, while another charges in with an outstretched pike. Screaming, the warrior priest outmuscles the men holding him and shoves them aside before grabbing the spear with both hands. Enkidu releases one hand and chops it down through the weapon, snapping it in half. Haida dives for Enkidu's sword, tossing it back to him just in time for him to spin into another attacking guard and claim his head. The remaining men back off, regrouping. Never before have any of them seen one man fight so powerfully and dominant. Suddenly, all the rumors of Enkidu's exploits become frighteningly believable. Enkidu is like a reaper before them, cutting down all of their lives with little difficulty. Even wounded, Enkidu is able to move with such swift ferocity that none of the guards are able to match blades with him. Denounce the serpent, and pledge your lives to the one true God, and I shall spare you, Enkidu says, cleaning the blood from his blade. I do not crave needless death. Throw down your weapons and end this battle. The guards' eyes move back and forth between each other in doubt. One of them tosses his sword to the street and steps back. This is not even my faith, the guard says. I worship the god of the seas and the storm, Njordnan. Enkidu nods. I have no feud with your god. Begone! An arrow is launched from the temple, piercing the man's throat. He falls, choking for air as blood fills his lungs and trachea. The great serpent Nylarthrotep does not tolerate treason, Dawkins shouts, lowering his bow. Enkidu and his whore must die. Enkidu grinds his teeth together, balling his fists enraged. The grip on his sword tightens as Tiavan thirsts for the blood of the head priest. More guards begin to fill the street, flooding out from the temple. We must retreat, Haida says, pulling at Enkidu's tunic. "There are too many of them, even for you." "We will regroup with Zidam and the others and return." Reluctantly, the proud warrior agrees. Fighting this many foes alone while he's still injured would be reckless and likely fatal. "Hold on to me. I will cut us a path through which we may flee." Haida wraps her arms around his neck and holds tightly as he sprints toward the nearest alley. 3 guards attempt to block his escape, but Tiavon becomes death, whistling through the air as blood sprays in all directions. Dakin jogs down the steps, grabbing a guard by the shoulder. "Follow them! Burn to the ground everywhere they might go to hide. Do not allow them to flee the city." Namath approaches, yawning widely. "What happened?" "Where were you? We were just under attack." "I was sleeping," Namath replies, glaring at the priest. Employer or not, he has no respect for the disgusting man. "I had a long night. Or have you forgotten the orders you gave me?" "You were ordered to apprehend the outsiders murdering within our fine city, and yet here they are attacking us so brazenly in the middle of the day. So I must ask, what the hell were you doing last night?" Namath waves him off, leaving. "I do not have time for this. If you want your enemies laid before your feet dead, just give the order. But I shall not be subject to your petty tantrums." Ducking into another alley, Enkidu curses and punches his fist into the stone wall. The man's strength shakes the entire building, and pebbles crumble around his knuckles. "Damn this city," he shouts. "I tire of running from them like a thief." "It could not be avoided," Haida says, trying to comfort him. "We stood no chance of victory under those circumstances." "It is shameful to run away from an enemy." "Stop with that pride. This city needs you alive to free her from the jaws of Nylarthrotep. You cannot kill the serpent if your pride gets you killed." "We must return to Zidam and gather every man able with a sword who tires of the serpent's oppression. The only way we will be able to storm the temple will be with a full revolution." "There are more people in Dwarka who loathe the serpent than that you would think. The rebellion cells have little contact with each other and are scattered throughout the city." "Now is the time that we must unite them," Enkidu says. The soldiers loyal to Refugio over the King of Levant march in a large caravan in the east towards the Jabal Mountains that form the northern border of the desert Ayoda. At the head of the caravan, the magician sits beside the Zakari, Shayatina, whose face and body is wrapped with a plain cloak and headdress. Only the supernatural red of her eyes would give her away as a non-human. Nervously, Refugio shifts in his seat as the cart pulling both he and Shayatina is pulled along by a team of horses. "I cannot believe I have betrayed the king. I will be caught and fed to the jackals." Shayatina strokes his arm, her higher body temperature causing him to jump. "If your king had discovered the extent of your experimentation, you and I would both have been put to death. Our child would be viewed as an abomination." She touches her stomach gently. Refugio still cannot believe that the Sakari is carrying a hybrid, let alone his. "Many men were sent in to you to mate. How are you to be sure with which you carry belongs to me?" He has asked her numerous times on this journey. "When we came together, the hormones were different. I could feel myself change to become fertile. It was like nothing I had ever before experienced." "Why?" The scientist in Refugio refused to accept the feelings as an answer. To him, only cold hard facts could justify Shayatina's belief. "The other men you sent to me were pleasurable, but something about us together changed me. I cannot explain it, but I know it to be true. King Dagon has never been anything but an ally to me. His trust in me allowed me to conduct my research unhindered and unlock secrets of this world that none other could. It is not right the way that I have repaid him." friend or not, do you believe that he would have spared you after learning you mated with me? That you sent your soldiers in to mate with me? That you experimented with my blood? That I was pregnant? I suppose not, Refugio whispers, defeated. The riders ahead of their cart stop, circling back around. What is it? Refugio asks, standing up. Above us, along the entrance to the mountain pass, the soldier says, pointing ahead. Raiders. Gaults? Refugio climbs from the cart and straps his sword to his belt. Unable to tell from this distance, the soldier named Mianyu replies. Shall we try to find another way around? Refugio shakes his head. The only other way is through the Edota, and we cannot afford the extra supplies we would have to expend for that detour. No. We must travel through this mountain pass. Can you use your magics to get us safely through the pass? Mianyu asks. Perhaps if our force were smaller, I could cloak us in invisibility. He pauses, thinking through his knowledge of spellcraft. Unfortunately, I do not believe that I could hide us all. It would be little help to us anyway. No doubt the raiders spotted us in our march along from that high place. Refugio nods. I cannot risk assaulting them with offensive magic and causing a rock slide to block our only path forward. Our only option is to send troops up into the cliffs and kill the raiders before we attempt to cross, Mianyu says. We do not know their numbers or strength. That would be a great risk, Refugio counters. I am unsure of how to proceed, I must say. I will lead your men up into the mountains and deal with the enemy, Shayatina says, uncovering her face. If you trust in me that I will not flee. Refugio asks. How many weeks has it been since you were in shackles or confined? Your freedom has been in your own hands for quite some time. The Sakari smiles and nods. I shall return. Shayatina walks through the caravan, selecting 20 men, and leads them up the narrow path into the high places. Do you trust her? Mianyu asks. I have no other choice. Since when were you intimidated by anyone, Refugio? The magician looks at the soldier as if he has been slapped across the face. Intimidated? I could destroy that woman with a single incantation. I felled dozens of their warriors in battle in Katatakuk. I am not intimidated by a single female. She holds something over you, then. Is it apparent that she is the one who is calling the shots around here? I just wish to know where your head is. Seeing that I have decided to follow you and make myself an enemy of the kingdom to which I was born and raised. I am sorry that you made that sacrifice on my behalf, Mianyu, Refugio says, genuinely touched. I shall do all I can to ensure that we all start a new life, free of the fear that King Dagon will hunt us down for our actions. Our betrayal? Refugio pauses for a second before responding. Yes, I suppose that is what we have done. Maybe in time the king's anger against us will cool. He will see that we have meant him no offense. We did not raise a hand against him, nor did we make any move to supplant his power. Our group could merely coexist no longer with Shayatina among us. Do you care for her? Mianyu asks, wondering why Refugio has gone to so many lengths to keep the Sakari safe. The magician is taken aback by this question and denies it vehemently. That is not it. She is powerful, and her blood will be a very useful tool in building us the kind of strength needed to establish our new settlement. Nearly an hour passes before Shayatina and her group encounters the first of the Gault raiders. The man raises a horn to signal his fellows of the attack, but one of the Levant soldiers fells him with the throw of a knife. The blade sinks into the raider's back, and he tumbles from the rocky ledge to the path far below. They are spread out. If we eliminate them one by one, we should have no difficulty in clearing these mountains, Shaitina tells the men. The soldiers are unsure if they are more uncomfortable taking orders from her because she is a female, or because she is not human. Fear keeps the men obedient either way. Each has seen firsthand the ferocity of the Sicarii. The path is cleared out in a few hours, and Shaitina returns with all 20 of the soldiers she departed with, having lost none. This earns her the respect of the men. Our path is now safe, Shaitina says, climbing back into the cart. Refugio notes the blood splattered across her face and up the length of her arms, but says nothing about it. We are moving ahead, Refugio tells the caravan. We should reach our destination in another 3 days or so. Enkidu and Haida take the longest and most indirect route to the safe house of Zidam and his revolutionary cell against the serpent. In the event that they are being followed, the two hope that their frequent detours will have the men tailing them confused and lost before reaching the destination. Stepping into the home of Zidam, the smell is the first hint that something terrible has occurred. The strong metallic scent of blood fills the air, and Enkidu is confronted by a wild dog gnawing upon the severed arm of a man in the doorway. "Oh no," Haida whispers, covering her mouth and nose. "It cannot be." "Stay here," Enkidu says, putting his arm across Haida's chest to block her from going any further into the building. "You do not want to see this." Haida pushes his hand away. "I must," she cries. "Seeing the evil here will only strengthen my hatred for the serpent, and all who bow down before it." Enkidu nods, stepping into the horror of the slaughtered resistance. His spirit and hope are quickly lowered the further he goes into the former safe house. Somehow, the guards of Dwarka were able to find Zidam's revolutionary cell without following Enkidu and Haida, and gruesomely murder everyone present. "Not a single drop of blood spilled will go unavenged," Enkidu says, filled with anger. "Nylarthrotep, the priests, all of the guards of the city. I will kill each of them for their part in this evil." Haida nods, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I shall do all I can to make sure that you stay true to that promise. I will give my life if needed to bring about that justice. Tonight is the final night belonging to the serpent in this city. Tomorrow, the temples shall be empty and the altars cast down. Not an eye will see nor an ear will hear the praises for Nylarthrotep again after this night." Enkidu grinds his teeth, setting his jaw tight in fury. "I vow to take the head of that worm tonight and cast it into the sea."